Okay, so this is still Module 9. This is still Roger, so we're talking here about types of knowledge and the different change agent roles and how they impact that. So I've added a lot of this in, so you'll see the parts that are from Roger's, and then you'll see sort of my addition. This is, how you can understand, the different types of roles in a very specific situation. So this is going to be more technology sales, technology diffusion, and adoption. So awareness knowledge, this is the beginning of the process. What is it and how does it work? So the different types of change agents that would help with this are people that are more high level. So a sales representative that would come in and help you understand, high level presentation or something like that. This is what it does. This is what you can expect. This is how it works. This is what people do with it and the advantages they see, stuff like that. So it's a higher level knowledge. Then you get into how-to knowledge. So now I'm saying, okay, this sounds like something I want to try, but now I need to know more. I need to know how to do it and how do you use it properly. So this is a place where, and in the technology world, we call these people systems engineers. Typically, they do have an engineering background of some sort, and they're very, obviously, very computer savvy. They're experts at the system and can, run either a demonstration or they can come on site and help you set it up and show you how to use it. So this is, the next type of knowledge where it might not be necessarily the decision maker who might be, doing this. This might be the people within the group or the department that would be running it. So they need to sign off and make sure they feel comfortable that they know how to use it. So this comes into a different type of change agent that's required. Someone that's more knowledgeable, more credible, the better with the system. They can answer detailed questions. They can understand about implementation and things like that so that this next phase within this type of knowledge is answered properly. And rejection is likely if this type of knowledge is not vetted. So in the event that perhaps the company, the technology company, or whatever company you're working with doesn't have this person available, and the department's not able to figure this out for themselves, it's very likely that the innovation is going to be rejected. We have that high level of uncertainty. We're not able to work through it. Maybe we don't have the motivation to work through it on our own, and the resource is not available, and so we're going to say, no, this isn't right for us yet. We don't feel comfortable with it. So then principles knowledge. So the functioning principles underlying the innovation. So this is kind of when you talk about that germ theory and water boiling. So we talked about early in Rogers where we had this very simple solution to killing germs in this village where they were drinking dirty water. Very simple. We're just going to boil this water. We're going to kill all the germs and you're going to be safe. But we had all these issues associated, culturally with this boiled water. And the people were not able to understand that underlying principle of knowledge, which was that germ theory. Okay, they don't understand there are germs in the water, and so there's no need to boil this water. And so because they lacked that underlying principle knowledge, they weren't able to move forward. And then on the opposite side, the fundamentals of human reproduction and family planning. Remember the change agent that understood about the Iping seeds. When the chickens ate the Iping seeds, they no longer laid eggs. People understood this, and he was able to facilitate knowledge by saying this pill or this device is like an Iping seed. If you use it, you're not going to have children, just like the chicken doesn't lay the eggs. So that association with regard to their culture was able to help them understand the underlying information required. So in the case of, so I was involved in an opportunity at Ford, this was many, many years ago, and it had, so we had, obviously a product the engineer had gone through, but there was a need for the very research-oriented people to understand the underlying necessity of this type of computing. So this was Salesforce, it was cloud computing, and cloud was not something that Ford was comfortable with. And so so I had met a Ford fellow. His name was Venkatesh Prasad. And I had to look him up because I don't think he's with Ford any longer, but he was there for many, many years, and he was a Ford fellow. And he said his job was to help people understand that there were options available. So he was not a decision maker. He was not even really an influencer. He considered himself kind of a door opener. And so he was very interested in the knowledge that we had and how it worked, and specifically for fast types of innovation, to be able to try something out using this technology to determine if it was going to work for Ford. And we had a very knowledgeable, so this was a super technical guy that was also, from a business perspective, very, very knowledgeable. And he had worked directly with Alan Mulally during the most difficult times, when they were figuring out how to come up with the money in order to keep Ford around during, I think it was like that 2007, 2008 timeframe. And so Peter actually knew people at Ford, high-level people like Mark Fields and stuff like that. And when Prasad found out about Peter, and what he spoke about. So he was a futurist. So he talked about how things will change as you move forward and the types of things to expect. And when Prasad found out that he was available, that huge level of credibility, he said, I want you to bring him here so that he can speak to our research and development people. And Prasad's perspective on this was, I want to elevate the credibility of these two people who are the change agents here at Ford. I want the research organization to understand the underlying principles of knowledge that are important in adopting this type of an innovation. And at the time, he wanted to invite IT. And I said to him, that's not going to work out really well, because IT doesn't like cloud computing. They're not big onto this, and they're going to screw this up. And he said, so it is my job. He said, I don't even knock on the door. He said, my job is to write down what's going on and slide the paper under the door so that I make my company aware of what knowledge is available, and whether they want to open the door and come to the meeting is up to them. But my job is to keep the door open and make this knowledge available to them. So it was interesting to me to have this person with this really strong understanding of what his responsibility was at the company and what he wanted to do for us. So elevating our level of credibility by bringing Peter in, and Peter's super credible. I mean, his presentation was fantastic, but it really didn't have a whole lot to do with cloud computing. It was really all about how fast change takes place in the world. He talked about global warming and things like that, and that the pace of change was so much different than what we were used to, and that the tools that allowed technologists to figure things out needed to change and needed to improve. And so the message with regard to Salesforce was super subtle, but it was very impactful, because researchers don't need the sales rep and the systems engineer, right? They're much more open to innovation than maybe your, normal average person. But they need that principle of knowledge to say, this is why you need to think differently about how technology works. So according to Rogers, change agents spend most of their time in awareness, but change is unlikely unless principal knowledge is addressed. So it is important that an organization go through the different stages and acquire the different types of knowledge, that the different people that are going to impact the decision all get the type of knowledge that they need in order to move forward. And so a lot of the technology firms have thought this through. These are tried and true methods. People like salespeople and sales engineers are taught to work together. They're taught to seek out the people that they need to influence. And people like Peter, these principals are brought in. So he doesn't go anywhere that someone hasn't vetted out and figured out exactly who these people are. People like Prasad were very important to this process, because Prasad was, very respected, and people would come. The room was completely packed, by the way. So Prasad had, a way of saying, hey, this is something you need to learn about. Come and listen to this very smart man. So there's a difference between early knowers and late knowers, which of course, when you look at the diffusion process, you could certainly understand that, right? Early knowers are going to be, they have more formal education, higher socioeconomic status, more social participation, more change agent contact. More exposure to interpersonal channels. They are innovators. So people like the Ford Fellows, slide the info under the door, right? They are connected with innovation. They are connected with a different type of person than late knowers are going to be, because late knowers are defenders of the status quo, right? They're comfortable where they are. They have selective exposure. I'm not even going to open my eyes to that because that doesn't work in my environment. That doesn't make me comfortable. It's not relevant to me. So sufficient knowledge is not obtained to become adequately informed so that persuasion can take place. So that's the issue. This is how they become laggards in the innovation diffusion process. It's not until, in some cases, there's nothing left but the new innovation. They can't even use the old cell phone anymore. It doesn't connect. They've got to throw it out. Verizon won't even connect it to their network anymore. Then they're going to get the new iPhone because there's nothing else for them to use. So the socioeconomic status, the fact that these might be, college, graduate student people versus, somebody that, might have gone to college, maybe they didn't even go to college, right? So their knowledge is very limited, and so they're going to have a lack of confidence. We read about that as well. They have a lower level of security in moving toward these innovations, and so therefore it takes them a lot longer to get there. So the knowledge persuasion stage, we have cognitive thinking. How does it work? We've got the rider is going, right? So this is all about, very specific information, the directions and very logical things. On the persuasion stage, we're dealing much more with feeling and emotion, right? We understand the knowledge, and now we've got to get ourselves over this, gosh, am I really ready for this change? It's a more psychological involvement, vicarious trials. So we apply the idea to the current or future situation, but we're not necessarily doing it. We're thinking it through, right? We're saying, how is this innovation going to impact the future of this company or my life or whatever it is? So how can I work through this? And a lot of that really is emotional, because we've got the words, we understand, but are we going to be able to move forward? The elephant is really big during the persuasion stage. Seeking innovation, evaluation, information to reduce uncertainty. So that is part of that persuasion stage. And as as somebody who was involved in this from a technology perspective, there's a lot of trust that takes place in the persuasion stage. You have to believe that change agent is someone that you can trust, right? They're not just here, to get a commission check or something like that. They really believe in what this product can do for my company. They've invested time. They understand how we do things. They understand the people. They've been patient. They've helped us to kind of adopt this as it makes sense for us. So that whole emotional piece of it during the persuasion stage is really important. And that's it for this section.